we can see you and we can see the
Okay,
slides.
Jen, I'll just confirm that you can see the PowerPoint and you can see me, and then we'll get going with the recording.
Helen, can't you hear me?
I can see probably Rockhampton on the screen. Jen, are you there? Oh, good. Rockhampton's waving at me. Is that right? The lady in the denim jacket, you're waving. Lovely. Okay, so you can hear me, no problem. We're just waiting just for Noosa just to confirm that they can see the presentation and they can hear me. But the lady in the denim jacket in Rockhampton, can you just put your thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint on the screen? Excellent. Thank you. And you can hear me and you can see me, so that's great. All right. We might just get going and we'll hope for the best with Noosa, but I'm sure that you can hear and see me, everyone else. And Jenny McDougall's going to just make sure Noosa's clocked in. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. It's really great to see everyone here. Can you believe that it's week 11? Wow. And if you're here, if you're sitting in a classroom, the Rocky people I can see, the Mackay people, you're sitting in your classroom, the Sydney people are joining us today, the Bundy people, the Noosa people. We're here in Gladstone, and it's so good that we've got a class. We've got probably almost half the class who are here, who are sitting here in week 1. Is that true? Look around you, everyone. Have you lost a few people at your campus? Yeah, that's just the nature of STEPS, and that's okay. And a whole range of reasons are behind the things that happen to people along the way and why they can't continue in STEPS. You know, it could be that they have work commitments. It could be that their family commitments became too much and they had to decide to leave STEPS for the time being. But because you're here, you're sitting here today, you've made it through. You're one of the ones who will graduate, who will finish STEPS. So congratulations, it's really great that you're here. And isn't it wonderful how STEPS is all about trying things out? You've had an opportunity to try out what it's like to be an undergraduate student. You've had the opportunity to work out the level of commitment that you need when you're a university student. So that's really important. So congratulations. If you're watching this online recording at home, you're one of those people too. You're sitting here in the classroom with us. You're part of this group who have persisted until the end. So congratulations. So today our topic this week is looking back, looking forward. And this is what we're going to do today. 4 things, everyone. We're going to reflect on prep skills and what it's meant to be in the prep skills class. We're going to hear from some STEPS students who have taken the plunge into higher education. They're people who have already completed the STEPS program and they're working on their undergraduate degrees. And then we're going to look at applying for university. And then finally, just finishing off the prep skills course. So that's what we're going to do. So number 1 today, reflecting on prep skills. And I really like this image because it does mean that we're looking back and we're looking forward. So in terms of how we're going to look back, I want to take you all the way back to the first week of prep skills where I introduced you to the learning outcomes. And this was our overall aim in prep skills. We wanted you to develop really strong study habits and become effective learners, confident, self-directed learners who knew a range of effective learning strategies. I want you to think about that. I'm sure you're all sitting here feeling much more confident than you did in week 1. You've got that. You are confident and you are self-directed, or you're on the road to being a self-directed learner. We also wanted you to set and manage your goals for individual study and career paths. Now, certainly you came into the STEPS program and some of you would have had a definite idea about what you wanted to do, but perhaps that's changed. Perhaps you're on a different path. I'm sitting here looking at Jess, and Jess has tried out lots of different things and is mulling things over. So we're on that journey, and we're also on that journey in terms of our critical thinking skills, everyone. We asked you to apply a range of critical thinking skills in a range of contexts with a particular focus on critical self-reflection. Now, you've learned over your time in prep skills that critical self-reflection is very, very important. It's not about being negative. It's about looking at what is happening in our lives, how we can improve our learning, what works well, what doesn't work so well. So I know for a fact that the people sitting in front of me are really a long way along that journey of becoming critical, self-reflective learners and thinkers. And we know that that's not a destination. It's not a destination. You don't actually reach that. You continue to develop those skills throughout your life. We've also asked you to find and evaluate relevant scholarly research. Now, this is really important. We devoted a whole module to it, Module 5. And for those of you who are doing the literacy courses, essay writing or technical writing, you're seeing that play out in action. You're actually applying those skills that you learnt in Module 5. And if you can think back to week 1, where Moodle was a complete mystery, wasn't it? Now it's just another word. It's seamless. You understand what you're doing. We asked you to negotiate systems and procedures at university, and you're really very confident in that. And finally, we developed communication skills appropriate for higher education. And some of the things that I can think about in terms of what you did in prep skills was the reflective writing. Learning Portfolio A and Learning Portfolio B was a series of critical, or is, you're still doing Learning Portfolio B, it's a series of critical reflective questions that you answered. Your reflective writing skills have developed, and you'll need those skills in undergraduate. And I'm sure when we hear from our past steppies in a moment, they'll mention the fact that a lot of the skills that you've learnt in STEPS are actually very pertinent to what you do in undergraduate courses and degrees. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't do it in STEPS. You need to become very familiar with those with the range of communication strategies you'll use at a tertiary level, including, dare I say it, the oral presentation skills, which you've all participated in. Become a little bit nervous about, over week 6, 7, 8, and 9. That would have been something that you got over and you conquered and you did it. And there's also the skills that you bring to the discussion forums as well. When you contribute to the discussion forums, the literacy skills you contribute to those posts that you make. And I'm talking to a lot of the distance students now who really use those discussion forums as a way of bringing the class to them. It's your own class and you communicate with each other on those discussion forums. So, looking back, everyone, what have I learned about myself this term? Mull on that for a moment. I think you've learned that you can exceed your expectations. I know a lot of people in this room are overwhelmed at how much they've achieved. And they've done that through hard work and determination. But if you look forward now, you have to think, well, what are my goals now? Have they shifted? Have I got some bigger and better goals? I know how to write SMART goals now, so I'm going to achieve those goals. And how can I plan for the journey ahead? Now, that could be another term of STEPS, or it could be that you're going straight into your undergraduate degree. How can I plan that it's going to be even better than what it's been this term? How can I improve my time management? How can I improve some of the strategies that I've been using to learn? So that's your aim with looking forward. And do you remember this picture, everyone? Here's that goose who's trying to be a penguin. I put this picture up in week 1. And I talked about the imposter syndrome, which Stella Cottrell talks about in her terrific book, the imposter syndrome, where you're feeling like you don't actually belong. Well, hopefully you're not like the goose in this picture anymore. Hopefully you're a fully fledged penguin and you belong in a university setting, because I want you to think about your success in STEPS. Because you're sitting here today, you are a successful STEPS student. Because you're watching this online lecture, you're a successful STEPS student, and you've learnt a lot about yourself in terms of your learning styles and yourself as a university learner, but I'm sure you've thought and learnt a lot about yourself as a person and what you can achieve. So it's time to revisit your contract, and this week in your tutorials, if you're an internal student, your lecturer will return those contracts, and you've got to look at what you promised yourself and whether or not you've achieved that. So that'll be a really nice way to round out the course. And if you're a distance student, dig out that contract you wrote to yourself, contact your support lecturer if you sent your contract to your support lecturer, and have a bit of an email exchange about what you did achieve and if you achieved what you promised yourself you would. So we've got 3 special guests here today, and they actually promised themselves a lot at the beginning of STEPS. They took the plunge, so we're moving on to part 2 of the lecture now. And I'd like to introduce you to, and I'm just going to zoom my camera out a little bit so we can fit everyone in. So come on over. I'm going to introduce you to Katie, Sian and Jed. So come in, Sian, if you want to come over here, and Jed maybe up the back here, and Katie, Sian, you can stand there. I'll just get in beside you. So everyone, meet these wonderful ex-steppies. And they've actually been where you're sitting right now, haven't you?
Yes,
this is a familiar lecture. You've been here, and I asked Katie and Sian and Jed to come along today to talk just a little bit about their experiences in STEPS and now their experiences at an undergraduate level. So the first question you can see on the screen there is I asked Katie and Sian and Jed to reflect on what are you studying at university and why did you choose that particular degree? So Katie, over to you first up.
Okay. I'm studying Bachelor of Education, Early Childhood. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but, you know, life gets in the way, and next year my 3-year-old goes to kindy, so I thought it's time to do something for myself and get out there and get myself a career.
Yay! Good on you. Jed, tell us what you're doing.
I'm studying electrical engineering, so I'm doing a Bachelor of Engineering majoring in electrical. I started down this path because in the very, very long term, I actually want to get into asteroid mining, which obviously isn't an industry that exists just yet, but in order to be ready for it when it does happen, I need the relevant skills and experience. So yeah, I started on the journey. I actually failed maths and physics in high school, so going through the STEPS course really helped me prepare for the electrical engineering part of it.
Wow, thank you. Okay, and Sian, what are you doing?
I'm doing a Bachelor of Psychology, which is now called Psychological Science.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. That's the one. That's something that I always wanted to do. I too was terrified of maths, was never any good at it, missed all the basics at school, so doing the maths course here really helped. And I didn't think I would actually get a chance to go to uni and do a degree. So coming to STEPS was like the best thing ever.
Okay, so do you want to keep going on that then? Because the second question is, in what ways did STEPS prepare you for your undergraduate experience? So you've already...
many.
So many?
So many. Yeah, giving me confidence just to know that I can be successful in a university environment is a really big thing, because at school, academically, I didn't succeed at all. I was always that kid that was just left out and rejected, a bit sort of shy and awkward, still shy, still awkward, but working on it, and yeah, just the maths, essay writing, essential for my degree and probably a lot of degrees in university. What else? Oh, I had it all written down.
That's all right. We'll come back to you.
Can
if
I
you
get
think
my
you-
laptop? I had it all written down.
Oh, you got it on your laptop.
I
Oh my
do.
gosh.
I'm a bit
Okay.
organised.
Okay, go get it. Okay, Jed, just in answer to in what ways did STEPS prepare you for your undergraduate experience, you mentioned that you didn't do so well with maths and science at school.
Yeah. So basically, I didn't do so well while I was in high school, and when I came to STEPS, I was not expecting to do particularly well in maths, but the STEPS course, the way that it's all presented, is actually extremely understandable, extremely simple, and I was able to get through that really well. So, and from that, I actually did 4 terms of STEPS course preparation in order to get into electrical engineering. And because of that, I felt extremely prepared for when I started doing the engineering component. Like there's quite a lot of maths and quite a lot of physics in engineering, in general. And having done all of this preparatory stuff just before getting into the course really helped my confidence levels. Helen, you mentioned earlier that we had that critical self-reflection was a big thing as well.
Yes.
And that's something that comes into play quite a lot in engineering. You need to be able to reflect on what you have done in the past, where you're going, and what you have learned. And that's all something you have to be able to write down eloquently, succinctly, and then compose it all into a very large portfolio, which is what actually determines your grade for one of the subjects.
There you go. So it's
being-
not airy-fairy stuff. Engineers use critical self-reflection. You heard it here, everyone.
Absolutely, every single week.
Okay.
And, oh, sorry.
No, you're right. Sorry.
Put it down there.
Too organised.
Here we go. Keep going, Jed.
Other than that, another very useful skill was the report writing, because in engineering, a lot of reports.
Okay.
You need to create a lot of reports, and in order to be able to do that in a fairly decent time frame and with putting out a decent quality content, having that experience in the STEPS course, knowing what is expected at a university level was extremely valuable. I've noticed when I compare the work that I put out in comparison to those who have just come straight out of high school, they don't know what the lecturers are actually after. But those people who went through the STEPS course understand the system, understand how to use Moodle, understand when to get everything uploaded and how to get extensions and all that sort of stuff. And it makes just a huge difference for my confidence levels, my stress levels, and also the content that I'm putting out.
Oh, great. Great to hear. And Katie, would you have some echo those sentiments?
Oh, absolutely. Everything that Jed said. As an education student, critical self-reflection is a huge part of my degree. Basically, one of our first assessments was reflecting on your experience through school and how that will make you, the way you're going to teach. And also, every lesson that you plan and do, you have to reflect on that. Every single day, you have to do that. So that is such a great skill that we learn. And like I said, not airy-fairy. I thought it was. Sorry, Helen. And it's a hard thing to do. It is, but, it is a skill that is ongoing. And just all the practical things like essay writing, how to find good sources of information. And I think even in your everyday life, knowing if a source of information is, relevant or correct is a good thing. Going through Facebook, you see something and you think, looks a bit dodgy. So yeah, I think that's another good skill. Formatting, time management, goal setting, all of those things are really, essential for university study. And also probably the main thing I got out of STEPS was a confidence in my own abilities and a sense of achievement, really.
Oh, Katie, great words. And Sian, you've got something written down
I've
here.
got my laptop now. I'm organised.
Okay.
I can't live without it.
And what ways did STEPS prepare you?
Moodle. Getting
Okay.
to know Moodle. As you already said, just already knowing that system when you start uni is a really big head start because you can just hit the ground running. You know how to submit assessments. You know how to check your grades. And as a distance student, that's really, really important because most of your material is on that site. And stay on your forums is a big deal because it's kind of like sitting in a big classroom with 300 other people, but you can tune into every single conversation and pause it and write stuff down and get all your answers that way, so you don't feel so overwhelmed or so lost.
Oh, excellent advice.
Love Moodle.
Okay, so following on from that, the last question that I asked everyone to think about was, what advice would you give about starting a university degree? So, Jed, over to you first. These are people who are just on that cusp of, should I, shouldn't I?
Getting into an engineering, any type of degree. Definitely, I would advise you keep hold of the STEPS books that you have. I've actually found that a lot of the times the STEPS books and the STEPS maths books and the essay writing books are better put than the actual official engineering books in terms of how clear they are, and in terms of how easy they are to understand, and in terms of how well they are organized. And in that regard, when I go into an examination, often you're allowed to bring textbooks and other resources with you. I actually bring in my STEPS books because they have the information in such a way which is much more easily accessible and much better for me in that environment.
Okay, that's a really great thing to think about. I hadn't even thought about, how useful they would be long term. So
Absolutely.
that's really great that you said that. Katie?
I absolutely agree. I've got that written down. I've gone back to my STEPS books numerous times, whether it be in computers to know how to format my essays, how to reference, even those self-reflection skills, going back and looking at those, it's been really vital for me. The one thing I would say is to try and build a really good support network for yourself, especially if you're a distance student. I've been really lucky to meet up with two girls that are doing the same degree, and their support's been absolutely invaluable to me. So that's been really good. And just get yourself organised, I suppose.
Oh,
That's
great.
not one of my inherent skills, and I'm still really working on it, but it's really vital to be organised, especially as a distance student, because it's too easy to get yourself behind.
Yeah. So we've got a sort of a range of modes that you're studying in. Katie, you're doing something called supported distance, where you get a little bit of on-campus support.
Yeah.
Jed's actually based at the Gladstone campus, so engineering is offered
Internally, all 4 years now.
all 4 years internally. And Sian, you're our distance student, but you do travel up to Rocky sometimes to attend some classes. Yeah, so you get a bit of a taste of that. But you've also mentioned that the online forums are so important to establish your classroom atmosphere. So finally, Sian, what advice would you give to the people who are sitting out there in distance land and here in the room?
That was actually my thing on my laptop, Helen. Thanks for asking. Advice for distance students or anyone thinking about studying but not sure if you want to because it is distance, it's not as scary as it sounds. I promise you. I was terrified. I nearly didn't want to start my degree because it was distance. It's not that bad.
I remember.
Yeah. I didn't want to do it.
Stay here with me.
I still do. But yeah, no, it's not as scary. Forums will help you most of the way, and you really just need to keep yourself motivated, whether that's reminding yourself why you're doing your degree, 6 cups of coffee a day, that's okay. Some days 2 or more. And just really tracking yourself. Buy a calendar, stick it on the wall, giant red pen marker for any of your assessment due dates, those sorts of things, just being organised, and that'll sort of help keep you on check. If you've got those little reminders sort of around the house and things, you go, I've got to do that. So you don't end up just getting back into bed, I guess.
There's also Blackboard Collaborate that we use via distance. So it's basically a lecture. You can talk. It's probably similar to this setup. And it does feel like you're part of a class. And it's very interactive. So you're not alone. It can sometimes feel a little isolating, but there's always support through the uni.
Excellent. I'm just astounded that how much wisdom 3 people can actually fit into one room. So thank you so much for coming along and sharing all that wisdom with us today. Can you please thank our guests? And I can see you getting lots of rounds of applause at all the other campuses too. So you've really made your mark. So thanks so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Ooh, too close, too far. There we go. Okay, well, that was wonderful, wasn't it? It was so great to hear where you can be in 12 months' time. You'll be those people standing up here talking about your experiences in undergraduate study. Now, we're getting to undergraduate study is the next step. So the next part of the lecture is about applying for university. So I'd like to just run through what you have to do. This is the overview of what I'm going to discuss in the next 15 minutes. We're going to talk about the different types of undergraduate programs, calculating your GPA, requirements for direct entry, what you have to do with that direct entry application form and the deadlines attached to that, and also just briefly mention if you're looking at applying to another university, because you have to remember that STEPS is set up for CQ University as a pathway directly into undergraduate programs. Now, the 2 types of programs that we have is something called guaranteed entry and something called quota-based. Most people would be tracking towards a guaranteed entry. That's almost all the programs of study at CQ University are guaranteed if you're a STEPS student, and you just have to meet the criteria. The required courses have to be completed and you have to meet a GPA and you're guaranteed entry. However, if you're tracking towards a quota-based program and your interview, right back when you started STEPS, your interview with your access coordinator would have gone over if you were tracking towards a quota-based program, because these are programs with a limited number of places and students actually compete for places with selection based on your GPA, and in some cases you have to have an interview. So let's think about the requirements for direct entry. I hinted at this in the previous slide. You have to complete your STEPS courses for your program of interest. And you will remember that at the interview, or soon after, you were given a required study plan. You were given a copy of your required study plan, and those courses that you were enrolled in were there because you nominated a particular interest. You have to pass all of those courses and get a particular grade point average required for your program of interest. Now, if you're unsure about any of that, about those requirements, or if you've changed your program of interest, just talk to your access coordinator. So if you're a distance student, your access coordinator is Nell Salem, and if you're an internal student, you would know who your access coordinator is on your campus. So let's move on to looking at how we calculate these things called GPAs, grade point averages. All it is that your letter grade that you receive at the end of your course, the overall mark, when all the summative assessment is added up, you'll get a letter grade, HD, D, credit, pass. We convert those to numbers. So you can see on the screen that a high distinction is worth 7, a distinction 6, a credit 5, and a pass 4. What you do then is that you add up all of those letters for all of the courses you've completed, and let's pretend that Jessica completed 4 STEPS courses and she achieved the following results: a D, a P, a HD and a C. So one of each. So really you're adding up the 7, 6, 5 and 4. Then you divide that overall total number by the number of courses excuse me, that Jessica completed. So she completed 4 courses, and I think it adds up to 22, doesn't it? I'm just doing it in my head, divided by 4. So her grade point average is 5.5. So that's how you can work out your grade point average. Now, many STEP students complete more than 4 courses, so don't forget that you add up your number for each of your course and divide by the number of courses that you've completed. So, the requirements for most programs at CQ University, most undergraduate programs, is to, excuse me, complete the STEPS courses required on your required study plan, and then achieve a grade point average of 4 or better. So tell me what a 4 is. What letter grade? A pass. Okay. So for most programs at CQ University, for a STEPS student applying through direct entry, your grade point average needs to be at a pass or better. Now, we have some programs that did have quotas applied previously, but they no longer do, but they have slightly higher GPAs. So you can see those programs listed here. So if you were thinking of going into occupational therapy, it was a quota-based program, it no longer is, but you need a GPA of 5. Paramedic science, you need a GPA of 4. Podiatry practice, 4.5. Chiropractic science, 4. And speech pathology, 5. So you need to take a note of that if any of those are the programs you're tracking towards. Now, we have 2 programs with no direct pathway from STEPS. So if what I've got on the screen applies to you, take careful note of this. So CC32 is the program code for the Bachelor of Engineering Honours program, and it incorporates a diploma of professional practice. So you might have heard of co-op engineering. CQ University is quite famous for its co-op engineering program. But you can't get into the co-op engineering program from STEPS, nor can you enter the CG99 Bachelor of Information Technology co-op program through STEPS. However, and there's the but there, the but in all of this is STEPS students can enter these 2 programs after completing a specified number of credits with a GPA above a specified limit. And you can transfer to the programs listed above. So you would start off in the CC31 Bachelor of Engineering Honours program, and then the CQ18 Bachelor of Information Technology. Jed, who was just here talking to you, is doing exactly that. He's going into the co-op engineering program. Now, these are the quota-based programs that we have, and you would have heard about this if you said at your interview, I want to do medical imaging or I want to do oral health. So medical sonography, medical imaging, oral health and physiotherapy are all quota-based. So you're competing with other STEP students and other students from non-traditional entry points as well. So you're competing with a range of people. Here are the minimum, now I use that word minimum, GPAs. Medical sonography 6, medical imaging 5, oral health 6, physiotherapy 5. You have to achieve that GPA, but you're still competing. So still think about that. So there could be many more people apply than spaces, so your GPA comes into play then. There are 2 other programs that will be quota-based that are very new to the university, cardiac physiology and echocardiography. We don't know what the GPAs will be for those 2 programs, but your access coordinator will know very soon. They're just being negotiated with the heads of those programs. All right, let's move on to actually the nitty-gritty now and how you find a form to fill out to actually apply for university. Now, there are a number of places you can go to get the direct entry application form. The first is the STEPS program Moodle site. Now, I'm just pointing this out to you because this was part of week 1 and you had a question on the University Awareness Quiz about the STEPS program Moodle site, so you should all know how to get there. There's a tab on the STEPS program Moodle site that says important forms, and you will find the direct entry application form there. There's also the form available on the Prep Skills Moodle site. So this site should be very familiar to you. Here's the banner that you all know, and if you expand module 11, which is our Looking Back, Looking Forward module, you'll see that there's a link to the direct entry application form there. This is what it looks like, everyone. Take particular note of some of the details I'm going to point out. So the first thing that you have to, I'm going to go back. The first thing that you have to be very clear about is the name of your program, and you can see that you can write the full name of your program here, and then you need to know the program code, and I'll show you where to get that program code very soon. But I want you to note that there is a second preference. Now, if you're going into a quota-based program, or you hope to, I would urge you to put down a second preference just in case. So if you were hoping for medical sonography, medical imaging could perhaps be your second preference. You also have to make decisions about how you're going to study, whether it's going to be internal full-time, internal part-time, distance, etc. So make some decisions about that, and then there's some personal details to fill in. When you print the application out, it's actually 4 pages, but it's really just the first 2 pages that you have to worry about. The other 2 pages has some information for you to read. Now, let's think about those program codes, because that's what you have to find out. Where do you go to get those program codes? You go to the student handbook. The student handbook was one of the places that we asked you to go in week 1. We asked you to answer a question about the student handbook on the University Awareness Quiz, so you should know how to get there. And when you get there, it will list, if you type in your program of interest, it will list the codes next to the program of interest. And I've just listed some there for you, for example. So each program of study has a 4-letter program code. The other thing that you have to work out is when you're going to start your particular program of interest. And we call that, when is it offered? All programs at CQU are offered in term 1. That's just natural. We start the new year, we start the program. But sometimes programs have term 2 intakes, and sometimes they have term 3 intakes. Very few have term 3, but some do. So you have to work out when it's offered and when you want to start. There's also lots of other really important information, and I've got a snapshot of what it looks like here. This is what the handbook looks like, and you can see I've taken the Bachelor of Nursing page, and you can see the program code listed next to the title, Bachelor of Nursing CQ23, and you can see all those tabs across underneath the title of the program of interest. Tabs like an overview, getting started. There you'll find out when it's offered, what term you can start in. Program learning outcomes, just as I went through the learning outcomes for the actual prep skills course, programs have learning outcomes for the overall program. The program structure tab is probably the most interesting, because it will list all the courses that you have to complete over the 3 or 4 year degree. And then there is a more details tab. So you have to do a bit of your own homework before you fill out this direct entry application form. Once you've completed it, you need to scan it and send the form to, email it to dea@cqu.edu.au. Now I can see people writing that down, that's really good, but it's also on the actual form where you have to send it to, the DEA. You need to send it from your student email account. If you send it from anything else, it will be rejected. The spam blockers will block anything going to the DEA@CQU if it doesn't come from a student email account, okay? And in that subject line of the email, please put your full name and your ID number. Otherwise, it's very difficult to track your application. So that's really important, that you put your full name and your ID number in the subject line. Now we're talking about deadlines now. When do you have to have all of this in? If you are applying for a program, if you're finishing steps this term, okay, now looking at the people sitting in front of me and looking at the people in Rockhampton, because you're still on my screen, I can see that not all of you are finishing in term 3. Some of you would be continuing on in term 3. So we'll talk about applying in term 1 in a moment, but some of you may be finishing off in term 3. For example, this time last year, Sian, who was just here talking to you, did all 4 courses that she had to have for direct entry into a Bachelor of Psychology. She completed those in term 2. She was then in a position where she was looking to see whether or not she could start in term 3. In the end, she elected to start in term 1 because what she wanted to do wasn't offered in term 3. But you may be in a position where you can start in term 3 depending on what you're going into. So you need to have your direct entry form in by Monday, the 26th of October, or earlier. Don't worry if you haven't finished your STEPS courses, get it in this week. So submit early, and I'll emphasize that. For term 1, 2016, if you're completing or if you're tracking towards a quota-based program, Wednesday, the 9th of December is when you have to have your form in. Now that's very early, but a lot of things have to happen for you to get offered a place in a quota-based program. You might think to yourself, well, I've not finished STEPS. How can I apply? It's okay. Apply. We can see the courses you've completed, what your grades are, and we can see the ones that you are still to complete. You will be given, first of all, you get a confirmation email within a day or two when you submit your application, just to say, yep, we've received it. Then within about 2 to 3 weeks, you'll be given an offer. And if you're still going with your STEPS courses, that offer will be conditional. It will say this is a conditional offer based on the successful completion of the remaining STEPS courses. Then when you finish those STEPS courses, it will convert to a full offer. So submit early. You can see their guaranteed entry programs Monday the 22nd of February, but you can submit in term 3. If you've got any questions about that, please contact the student advice team, and you can see their phone number there. And of course, all of their details are listed in your Prep Skills book in Module 11. Now, some people may be applying to other universities because it just may be that what you want to do isn't offered at CQ University. Your access coordinator would have been very clear right from the start that it's up to you to contact the university you're intending to apply for. Contact them and say, this is what I'm doing, what are the requirements? You then have to submit an application. You can't do a direct entry form. You have to go into what we call the QTAC application round if it's a Queensland university. So QTAC stands for Queensland Tertiary Admissions Centre. There are timelines attached to QTAC applications and there are costs involved, unlike direct entry into CQU, which is free. Please contact or go online. Just type QTAC into a search engine and it will come up and you will be able to see what the timelines are. If you're applying for a university outside of Queensland, contact that university and you would have to go into the UAC, which is the Universities Admissions Centre website, and see what their timelines are. We also talk about applying to other universities in Module 11. There's a section on there I'd urge you to read. So in summary, everyone, the first thing you have to do is check the handbook for program information. You then download and fill out the DE application form. Nominate a second preference if you think it's worthwhile. Submit your DEA application form. Use your student email account to send the form, and make sure you have your full name and ID number in the subject line. Now, all of this will still be on the Moodle site for Prep Skills if you want a refresher in term 3. You can look back at the lecture that's being recorded so you can remember, or simply, as Jed said, hang on to your STEPS preparation skills book and read about it again. So Finishing prep skills. We've got 8 minutes to go in the lecture today, and I just want to round out the term for prep skills. It's week 11. We're having a lecture today, and if you're an on-campus student, you'll still have your lab session and your tutorial this week. In the lab session this week, we're going to get you to do your course evaluation, not just for prep skills, but for the other courses that you're enrolled in. And look out for teaching evaluations on the website, on the Moodle sites for all your courses, and do those teaching evaluations. We love to get your feedback. As I've said, prep skills, it's a great course, but there might be some really good suggestions you have that we can work on to even improve it even more. It's the last tutorial this week. Okay, you've got no classes in week 12. That's so you can concentrate on things like getting your essay finished, studying for your maths test, all of those really important things, and doing those computing assessments. So if you need an extension for your last piece of assessment, which is Learning Portfolio B, it's due this Friday, the 2nd of October by 11:45. I'll urge you to put in an application for an extension prior to Friday, if possible. Some of the things that we're asked about is, next term, when does that start? Be an independent, confident, self-directed learner and think, what did I learn about in week 1? Where do I go to find those principal dates? So go to your student portal and have a look for that. Get yourself prepared for term 3. Or if you finish with STEPS and you're going to be starting in term 1 with your undergraduate studies, you know where to go to get the calendar. So you know about things like looking for those start dates for term. And of course, not to mention course profiles and when Moodle opens and getting yourself organised before the start of term. So the journey you've been on, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Remember when we talked about the hero's journey in week 2, and that all good things in life come with ups and downs, and you've got to ride it out. If I was on that, I'd actually be vomiting. I don't think anyone's vomited from being in STEPS, but I'm not good with whizzy rides. But there's been some highs. And if you told me that there weren't any lows, well, I might not believe you, because there are lows. Just the challenge of a new environment. The idea of doing assessment. Sometimes we do have some low points. It's just part of being human. But the thing I want you to remember is that you've had success with STEPS, everyone. You're here. You're sitting here listening to this. You're watching this online. You're the successful STEPS students. So you want to take that success with you into the next phase. And just before we go, 3 tips for success from me. One is beware of self-sabotage. Cottrell talked about self-sabotage, and we talked about it in the lecture, and you worked on that in the tutorial. Self-sabotage, we often make our own problems. So if we can avoid that, if we can recognise when we're self-sabotaging, do something about it. And just a word for the high achievers and overachievers. It's okay sometimes if it's not a high distinction. It's the effort that you've got to, your effort is your own reward. And remember to accept constructive feedback and work on what the lecturer is saying to improve things. So sometimes we get all head up with grades, but remember, it's about the learning. Take ownership, everyone, of what you're doing. Sometimes we blame other people when things don't go right. But this journey through higher education, we have to take ownership of, and remember, no excuses. And the ownership also starts with coming to class, that's what you're all doing, and doing your homework. So the people who are here, you've come to class, you've done your homework. So that's taking ownership. And remember your goals, everyone. The goal of a higher education degree is really something worth pursuing, because the research around those who have a degree, university education is associated with better job prospects, higher social status, better health, self-efficacy, which is just a fancy way of saying a belief in one's personal competence. So your self-efficacy will be higher, racial tolerance and more community involvement. And we know that community involvement, creating those networks with people, is also associated with really positive mental health. So not only do you increase your chances of getting a job and earning a higher wage, it's all of those other benefits that are just astounding. And of course, that's discussed in Module 11 too. So I'd encourage you to go and read Module 11 after the lecture so that it reinforces all of the things that we've been talking about today. Finally, share your thoughts. Here's a big plug for the discussion forum, the journey so far. I'd really like to respond. I'm on the discussion forum this week responding to students, so if you haven't yet posted anything to the discussion forum in Prep Skills, make week 11 your week and I can respond to you. And another plug for the course and teaching evaluations. At the time that I took that snapshot for this lecture, you can see only 19 of 459 had completed the course evaluation. I think it's about 60 now, but we need to get it right up there to 350 if we can. So let's aim for that and give your lecturing staff some feedback. And I'll leave you with this. This was Term 1, 2015. This is what one distance student had to say. This has been the most amazing journey for me. I've pushed and tested myself and gone beyond my comfort zones. I feel I have grown and have benefited from it greatly. I've learned to deal with and overcome stressful situations. I've learned to let go of the little things and focus on the big picture. I've learned some great learning strategies, and now I feel I belong in university. The journey ahead looks just as challenging, if not more, but I have come this far and it'll be worth it in the end. So a great message there. So all I have to say is bye-bye. It's been a pleasure, and I really wish you all the very, very best with your future learning journey. Bye for now, everyone.
Can you hear me now, Helen? Can you hear me now, Helen?
Okie dokie.
You see the mic live.
That's